Asterisk, her body was too big, her voice too loud, and her heart too full, so they called her a mistake. But when a human crash-landed with a glowing baby in his arms, the baby stopped crying the moment she touched her. And in that moment, the woman they once cast out might just become the mother who rewrites two entire worlds. Asterisk, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, smash like, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from right now? Now, let's jump into the story. The wind howled across the frozen valley, carrying snow like broken glass, sharp, relentless, and wild. Somewhere beneath that white fury, Rennick stirred. His body was bruised and bloody, one arm bent at the wrong angle, his visor cracked, and fogged. The wreckage of his scout pod was scattered behind him, black smoke curling into the sky like a final breath. He shouldn't have survived. His crew hadn't. Everything in his suit told him to shut down, conserve energy, let sleep take him. But something someone was crying, faint at first. A soft, rhythmic sound like the whimper of a heartbeat. It floated through the blizzard, fragile and distant. It didn't make sense. This planet was supposed to be empty, frozen, lifeless, another forgotten outpost of the galaxy. But the sound was real, and it was calling. Rennick dragged himself to his knees. Pain lit up his chest too. Ribs at least were cracked, maybe more, but he moved anyway. One step, then another. He followed the crying through the storm. A flicker of blue light appeared between ice-covered boulders. As he got closer, he saw a pod, not one of his. Sleek, organic in shape, glowing softly like the belly of a fish. Inside was a baby small, green-skinned, eyes closed tight from the cold, but still alive. The pod's temperature control was failing, flickering on and off. The child shivered. Rennick stared, breath catching. He had never seen a creature like this. It wasn't human, not fully, but it was still a baby, alone, afraid, crying. He pressed his glove to the pod and whispered, "It's okay. I've got you." The moment he lifted the baby into his arms, the crying stopped. The tiny hand reached up, touching his chin through the cracked visor. Warmth hummed from her skin, soft, strange, and somehow comforting. He didn't know what to do. He had no working comms, no working weapons, no map. But the pod emitted a faint signal, not strong enough to call for help, but steady. It pulsed like a drumbeat, calling to something or someone. Rennick followed it. Hours passed. The storm didn't let up, but the baby in his arms gave him purpose. He trudged through snow and across sharp ice, using every ounce of strength he had left. Then, just before his legs gave out, he sought a cave, hidden behind a wall of snow-covered stone. The signal was strongest here. He pushed through, barely, noticing how the storm quieted the moment he stepped inside. The cave was warm, heated by natural vents. Steam rose in curls from cracks in the ground. And then he saw her at first. She looked like a statue, massive and unmoving. Half buried in snow near the cave wall, her jade-green skin shimmered with faint light. Her arms were crossed, her body curled inward. But she was alive, breathing, barely. Rennick approached slowly. Her voice stopped him. It was low, filled with sorrow. "I am too big, too wrong to breathe," she whispered. Her eyes opened deep, glowing pools of light. They flicked to the child in his arms. She gasped and turned her face away. "No," she said. "Not her. She shouldn't be here. You know her?" Rennick asked. The woman curled further into herself. Her massive body trembled, not just from cold, but from shame. "She is mine, but I never made her. Not fully. I wasn't supposed to." Rennick didn't understand, but he felt something in his chest, a tightness, a recognition. He knelt before her, ignoring the pain, and gently placed the baby into her large, shaking arms. The moment the child touched her, everything changed. The crying stopped. The baby cooed softly. The woman's body began to relax. Her breathing slowed. The glow in her skin softened, shifting from blue to a warm gold. Her hands, so large they could snap metal, held the child like she was something sacred. "She knows you," Rennick whispered. The woman looked at him, tears clinging to her cheeks. "She's warm," she said. "I thought I'd forgotten what that felt like." They sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by steam and firelight. Rennick's limbs ached, but his heart felt steady. "Who are you?" he asked. Her voice cracked as she replied, "My name is Leary. I was born strong, born different. My people said I was not a woman, not a mother. They said I could not bear life. I believed them." Rennick didn't look away. "And yet, here she is." Leary stared down at the baby in her arms. "Maybe she's a mistake. Or maybe," Rennick said gently, "she's a miracle." The fire popped. Outside, the storm began to die down. But inside the cave, something had already shifted. Leary held the child close, and for the first time in years, she let herself feel not shame, but possibility. The fire crackled gently. As steam rose from cracks in the stone, casting shadows that danced across the cave walls. The cold outside still howled, but in this space, time felt slower, softer, warmer. Leary sat with her back against the cave wall, the glowing baby resting quietly in her arms. Her green skin shimmered faintly, her bioluminescent markings no longer pulsing with fear, but with something gentler, calm, maybe? Acceptance? She wasn't sure yet. Across from her, Rennick knelt by the fire, wrapping torn cloth around his bleeding ribs. He hissed as the fabric pressed against a deep cut, but he didn't complain. His eyes kept returning to the child, to them, really. The alien woman and the baby who had somehow made him forget he was stranded and broken on a frozen planet. "She hasn't cried once since you touched her," Rennick said softly. Leary looked down, brushing a thick thumb across the infant's cheek. "I don't understand it," she whispered. "She shouldn't want me. Why not?" Rennick asked. She hesitated, then said, "Because I was told no child ever would." Rennick watched her carefully. "You were exiled?" She nodded. "Not for something I did, but for what I am." The firelight reflected in her eyes, catching on the gold patterns running along her collarbones. Her face, though strong and broad, looked tired, like she had carried years of silence behind her teeth. "I was too large," she continued. "Too white-skinned, too wide in the chest. Not graceful, not gentle. They said I looked like a warrior, not a bearer. And I believed them." Rennick frowned. "So they punished you for how you were born? They said I could never mate, never carry life. I was a failure to our kind. A breeding mistake." She looked away, shame creeping back over her features like frost. "But this child, her voice dropped to a whisper. She is real. I feel her warmth. I feel her heartbeat matching mine. That shouldn't be possible." Rennick shifted closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the heat of his presence. "Maybe your people were wrong," he said. "Maybe you weren't broken, just different." She looked at him, eyes wide. "Different isn't a mistake," he added. "It's a beginning." Silence passed between them, not the cold kind, a kind that's heavy with new thoughts, new feelings. Leary looked down at the baby again. "She looks like both of us." Rennick raised a brow. "What do you mean?" "I didn't carry her, not in the way my kind does. But she has my glow, my markings. Still, her features, her hands, her cheeks, there's something human in them. He frowned. That's not possible. I think she came from the crash, Deliri said slowly. From the pod. From something that activated when you arrived. Rennick's mind flashed back to the crash. The fire. The dark chamber. He remembered a strange biopod near the control core. He'd touched it while trying to shut down the reactor. I didn't know, he said. Deliri wasn't angry. She simply looked at him, eyes wide with wonder. If you are part of her, and I am too, then she is not just alien, not just human. She's something new. Rennick looked at the baby, suddenly seeing her in a different light. She shifted gently in Deliri's arms, her tiny fingers brushing against her mother's chest. The moment they touched, Deliri gasped softly. A wave of warm gold shimmered through her body. Not painful, not dangerous, just powerful. She's responding to me, Deliri whispered, like she's waking up. Rennick smiled, despite everything. Or maybe you are. Deliri met his eyes. Her voice shook. I've hated this body for so long. It was always too much, too loud, too big, too wrong. I used to think if I could shrink into nothing, I would. But your body carried her light, Rennick said. Your arms calmed her. That's not too much. That's everything. The fire glowed brighter for a moment, like it agreed. You should rest, Deliri said after a pause. Your ribs are broken. Your blood smells like rust. He chuckled. Weakly, not my best day. She shifted the child in her lap and reached out cautiously, at first placing a broad hand against his ribs. Her touch was warm, steady. Her fingers glowed faintly, the light flowing into him. The pain eased. Not fully, but enough to breathe again? You're healing me? He asked. No, she said. I'm remembering how. Their eyes met. There was something charged in the space between them. Not romance, not yet, but a spark, a question, a possibility. The child let out a soft coo, curling against Deliri's chest. For a long time, they said nothing. They just sat together, one human, one alien, and the child who wasn't supposed to exist. But she did. She glowed. She breathed. And in that quiet cave, the shape of something new began to form. Not shame, not fear, but warmth. The fire had burned low. Rennick lay on his back, chest rising and falling slowly, wrapped in Deliri's old travel cloth for warmth. He winced with every breath. But it wasn't the pain keeping him awake. It was the silence too still, too quiet. Across the cave, Deliri stood near the baby's pod, arms folded, her glowing skin flickering with faint orange light. The child slept peacefully, cradled in the soft wrap Deliri had stitched from her old cloak. Her light pulsed like a heartbeat, steady, warm, and alive. But Deliri wasn't calmed out. She was listening. Something outside had changed. The wind no longer howled wildly. It moved in waves, controlled, steady, like it had learned to follow orders. Then she heard it. Footsteps, not many, but close, purposeful. She turned sharply, bioluminescent lines on her arms flaring red. They found me, she said. Rennick sat up with effort. Who? Deliri's voice dropped. The Watchers. My kind, the ones who cast me out. He tried to stand, but stumbled. She moved quickly, catching him before he fell. Her hands, so large and powerful, lifted him with ease. Stay down. You're still healing. He shook his head. I won't let them hurt her. Deliri looked toward the cave entrance. Her jaw tightened. They won't just try. If they see her, they'll destroy her. Why? Because she shouldn't exist. Because she proves them wrong. Deliri stepped back into the shadows and grabbed a long, curved weapon hidden behind a stone ledge. It glowed faintly, the soul blade, she had once called it. A weapon only given to warriors. With no family. No future, but she had both now. Rennick limped toward the baby, gently wrapping her in the thermal wrap. The child didn't wake. She trusted the hands that carried her. Outside, the snow shifted again, this time with rhythm. A low mechanical hum echoed across the ice, followed by a soft pulse of red lights in the fog. "They've brought purification drones," Thalery whispered. "Purification?" Rennick asked, fear prickling his spine. "It means burning everything that doesn't belong. They won't stop at her. Or you." She turned to him, her massive form outlined by the flickering firelight. "You need to run." "I'm not leaving either of you," he said. "You don't understand. I was born different. Too much mass. Too much heat. My body caused system errors in the old birthing temples. They called me a flaw, a risk to the bloodline. They feared what I could produce." She looked down at the child in Rennick's arms. Now that fear has formed. Rennick reached out, touching her hand gently. "Then we run together." For the first time, Thalery didn't argue. They moved fast, slipping out the back of the cave and into the frozen fields behind it. Steam hissed from cracks in the ground as geothermal vents kept patches of earth warm. The baby stirred slightly, then curled tighter against Rennick's chest. Behind them, the entrance to the cave glowed red. They didn't have long. Snow crunched underfoot as they hurried through the cliffs, Thalery using her strength to clear fallen ice and carry Rennick when his injuries slowed him down. Finally, they reached a hollow in the land, a natural bowl with jagged rocks and a large steaming vent at its center. It wasn't safe, but it was shelter. They ducked inside just as another sound split the air, a sharp electric whistle, followed by the low hum of incoming drones. Rennick collapsed behind a large rock, chest heaving. His exosuit was torn again, the bandages slipping from his ribs. The baby let out a soft whimper, but Thalery was there in seconds, her hand over the child's back, steady and calm. "She feels your pain," Thalery said softly. "I'm fine," Rennick lied. "No, you're not, but you're still here. That means something." They huddled together as the sky above them lit up with red beams. Then came the voices, flat, unfeeling, mechanical. "Target anomaly identified. Orders: eliminate hybrid and terminate parental units." Thalery's hand gripped her soul blade tighter. "They never used to speak like this," she whispered. "They've been reprogrammed." "Then we changed the program," Rennick said. She looked at him, really looked at him. His face pale, lips cracked, blood drying on his collar. And yet, his arms never stopped holding the baby like she was everything. "You would stand between me and them?" she asked. "I already have." She stepped forward, her bioluminescent markings glowing brighter, now fiery gold against deep green. Her stance widened. Her voice rose. "No more shame," she whispered to herself. The child stirred. A soft hum escaped her mouth. It echoed, bouncing off the rocks like music. Rennick stared in surprise. So did Thalery. "She's singing?" he asked. The sound grew, soft but clear, vibrating the stones. A strange light shimmered from the child's fingers, reaching out toward a crack in the stone behind them. The rock trembled. Something was waking. Thalery's eyes widened. This is a temple, not just a shelter. As the hum deepened, the ground shook beneath their feet. Ancient shapes began to rise, crystal pillars glowing with old power. The child's voice rose again, and the pillars answered in kind, pulsing. With color. "She's unlocking it," Rennick said. Thalery held the child close, her heart pounding. "She's not a mistake," she whispered. "She's a key." And somewhere behind the steam and snow, the watchers realized they were no longer in control. Asterisk, the ground shook beneath their feet, soft at first like a heartbeat, but growing. Stronger with each pulse from the child's glow. Valeri stood at the center of the old hollow, steam curling around her shoulders. She held the baby close, wrapped in thick cloth, the child's small green fingers reaching toward the sky. Behind her, Rennick limped up the final ledge, his body weak, but his eyes locked on them. Around the clearing, the ancient crystal. Pillars that had been buried in ice now shimmered with light, responding to the child's song. "I've only read about places like this," Rennick whispered, staring at the glowing circle of stone. "A temple of origins. It was where my people judged those who hoped to bear life," Valeri said quietly. "They used to decide who was worthy. I came here once, alone. They told me the stones were silent for me." The baby's humming grew louder, clearer, as if the vibrations inside her were becoming words. The crystal pillars pulsed brighter. But there was something else now, movement in the distance, shadows, figures in the snow. The watchers had arrived. Dozens of tall, thin forms stepped through. The mist cold and sharp, dressed in metal weaves and carrying long weapons of silverlight. At the front stood a tall figure in a black cloak, face hidden, voice cold. "Valeri of the Exiled," the leader called. "You were told never to return." "I didn't come for you," she answered, holding the child tighter. "I came for her." The leader stepped forward. "That child is an abomination, a fusion of two bloodlines, a violation of law and purity. You know what must be done." "She breathes. She sings," Valeri said, stepping into the center of the glowing ring. "She is alive. She is proof. She is dangerous." "No," Valeri's voice rose. "She is change." The watchers aimed their weapons. Rennick stepped in beside her, though his body trembled with every movement. "You want her," he said. "Then go through both of us." The leader hesitated. The crystals began to hum again, deeper now, echoing through the ground like thunder. The baby lifted her tiny hand and pointed at the pillars. Her glow turned violet. Suddenly, the pillars burst with sound, a wave of harmony, not noise, but music. The watchers flinched. The leader stumbled back. "She's connecting to the temple," Rennick said. "She's rewriting it." Valeri looked down at the child and saw it. The baby wasn't just glowing anymore. She was resonating. Her breath, her hum, her pulse all matching the temple's beat. "She is the bridge," Valeri whispered. "Not human, not alien. Something new." The leader barked. "Silence her." Weapons rose. The baby whimpered, and then Valeri did something new, unexpected. She sang. Not a song of war, not one of fear, but a melody her people had long forgotten. A lullaby once used to guide the young into sleep, to soothe life into being. The song of the cradle makers. Rennick watched in awe as the temple responded. The air shimmered. The pillars pulsed gold. The baby giggled. Suddenly, the watchers stopped. Their weapons shook in their hands. Something deep inside them was stirring memories, instincts, things that had been buried beneath laws and fear. The leader shouted again, but the others didn't move. Valeri's voice grew louder. The child's light matched it. And the temple sang back. The melody reached higher, climbing through the snow and sky until it touched the stars. The light from the child spread to Valeri, to Rennick, and then outward, warm, soft, undeniable. The leader dropped his weapon. One by one, the watchers knelt, not in fear. In awe, Rennick turned to Valeri. Her shoulders relaxed. Her body, once filled with shame, now stood tall, proud, powerful, maternal. He stepped to her side, placed his hand over hers. "I hated this body once," she said softly. "They told me it was too big, too much, too wrong." He looked up at her. It gave her life. It held her when no one else could. She looked down at him. Her eyes, once dim, now glowed like molten gold. "And you gave her a name. They hadn't spoken it yet, not out loud. But in that moment, they knew. Siren. It meant hope. In Thaliri's ancient tongue, and in his, it meant star. The child cooed, glowing brighter. The sky above split open, not with storm, but with color. Waves of violet and silver danced across the sky, painting the heavens in light that the watchers bowed not, and for the first time in her life, Thaliri didn't bow back. She held her head high, her shoulders straight, not as an exile, not as a mistake, but as a mother, a warrior, a beginning. Rennick turned to her, his voice low. They said you were too much. She smiled, tears catching on her cheeks. But to her, I was just enough. The temple's final note rang like a bell through the frozen land. And so, a child born of two worlds stood at the center of a place built to divide them, and sang a new future into being.